So I wanted to talk about whether the DMT hyperspace can be achieved with meditation or if you need a psychedelic to achieve it. So originally I always thought that psychedelics and meditation were a different thing, largely because I listened to Terence McKenna's talks about it, and that was his opinion. I'll even share the clip.
Yeah.
Are you against meditation when you think it doesn't work as well as hallucination?
Well, no, I think they're completely different realms of human activity. I can't, I mean, meditation, you don't hallucinate. You don't, they say you do, but they aren't very convincing. And plus, the monks then rush over and explain that you're doing it wrong. So, you know, what's the deal? I think if by meditation you mean lying down and closing your eyes, or sitting up and closing your eyes a lot, I do that a lot. And I like it, but I would never confuse it with the psychedelic enterprise.
You don't think it gets you the same revelatory position?
Pardon me?
You don't think it can get you to the same revelatory position?
It's only my opinion, but I really don't. I think that it's that all of these spiritual techniques are not substitutions for the psychedelic experience, but trade-offs.
So after listening to him talk about that, I sort of agreed with him, so I never really tried to invest much time into meditation because I thought it was a waste of time and psychedelics were the real thing. But I always was kind of disappointed that it wasn't possible, or assumed that it wasn't possible, because the thought of just being able to enter that state without having to take a psychedelic was really appealing to me. I didn't really like the idea of having to take an outside substance to achieve those states of mind, and I thought that, hey, you know, why can't it just be built into us naturally? So after going through a few years of believing that, I came by another guy who I believe is a neuroscientist, and I don't know that for sure. Based on his knowledge and based on the things he talks about and the language that he uses, I can only assume that he's very deep into that community, and because he's able to debunk a lot of things that I share with the other shroomery people in the threads. And I should also say that he's a materialist, so he doesn't believe that the psychedelic experience is something that is outside of the brain or whatever, or that the consciousness has any sort of connection with anything outside of itself. But he does believe that the psychedelic state can be achieved with meditation, and I'll share the quote that he said about this. And to be honest, he hasn't explicitly said that, but he's explained things that pretty much point to that as being what he's talking about. So this is the quote that he said, and I'll cover it so that there's no glare so that I can see it better. Jarring, intense mental scapes can ensue from any of the actions that cause mental state changes, i.e., as it goes from gaseous to liquid and horror of horrors to solid. You may not like to think of the mind as an element with states, but that is what we are playing with here, with meditative absorption, emotion, and psychedelic drugs. The strongest doses can cause a solidification of moments layered on top of each other. Milder and lingering moments of the experience overlap in fluid trails. Milder still, and the layers are a pleasant gaseous enhancement. And none at all, the fog is gone, so to speak, and the air is clear. So here he's basically saying that meditative absorption and psychedelic experience cause an entropy effect on the mind. So as it moves from gas to solid, it becomes more resonant in its mind state, so that apparently things start to overlap, and that's what causes the psychedelic experience, and that's what causes like voices and trails and things like that. And I don't really 100% subscribe to his opinion that it's all these mechanics and there's no sort of outside forces, because I think that quantum mechanics does come into play with the psychedelic experience through microtubules, because this is based on the Orc-Or model of consciousness. I have another video on that. But other than that, I think it's really interesting that he would think that, even though he's such a materialist, I would assume that he would be the one to say, oh no, they're completely different. But this makes me think, you know, is it worth my time to sort of try it? Because I'm assuming that it would take probably like hours every day to be able to gain the experience to get to higher states of consciousness. And this also reminds me of the Orc-Or video that I shared, where Stuart Hameroff was talking about how meditative states and psychedelic drugs push the consciousness system more into non-locality. So it is definitely a possibility that these things can happen. So I wanted to know, do you guys have any experience with that? Are you able to achieve any psychedelic states through meditation, and do you think it's worth it? If you guys do think so, then I would probably give it a go. I would still have to see if I have the time for that, because I do have psychedelics still. I could easily just take that. But if the idea that meditation sort of trains you to actually be able to stand the experience, then I think it would be beneficial, because psychedelics often throw you into states that you can't handle, that you can't sort of put the brakes on and go off. So maybe meditation is good for that you can sort of go into states like that, and if you go too far, you can sort of just put on the brakes and open your eyes and you're back to normal. Hopefully you guys thought that was an interesting discussion, and I will be sure to bring up more interesting topics. I'll see you later.